Naja Faysal joins me on the podcast today. Naja is somebody who it goes back a long way in my marketing history and my marketing career because we first met many, many years ago. I haven't actually figured out quite how many, but it is a long time back when we were both working together at Cambridge Marketing College. Nigel was doing a sort of specific course that I was supporting, and we have stayed in touch ever since. And we've kind of been tracking each other's progress. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting now that we've kind of reached 2024 to kind of review things and see really where we are? So, welcome to the show, Naja.
Thanks a lot, Neil. Thanks for having me.
So, can you remember just how far back it was? I was trying, before we sort of met this evening, I was trying to kind of figure out actually when was it that we first met? Can you remember the years that you were doing that particular course?
Absolutely. It's 2008, and I was an account executive. I was just starting my career at Leo Burnett, and and social media was just was just getting popularity. And we at Leo Burnett, we used to do a lot of TV commercials and print ads. And I used to deliver those ads to the media company, Starcom at the time. I'm not doing ads for these companies, but I just remember like this period in my history at the beginning of my career where I decided I want to know all this digital marketing thing. So I went to and I found this Chartered Institute of Marketing, and one of the schools that I can take the course from was Cambridge Marketing College, and I signed up for that certification. I think it's called Mini Bachelor or something like that, and then I got in touch and with you as my professor for that certification, and we started a relationship from there, and it was a very fruitful relationship. And ever since as you said, we've been in touch and following each other. And you've been a great mentor for me throughout my career. So I appreciate having this conversation with you right now.
Oh, it's really kind of you to say that, because I think, when we first kind of made connection there and we were kind of working through various kind of reports and strategies and things that you were needing to do kind of on the course, I think at that time I had a feeling that you were different to a lot of the other sort of people actually on that course and connected with the college. And I don't know, I just kind of felt there was a certain energy, there was an entrepreneurial spirit, there was something that was just a little bit different. You were bringing a different flavor of marketing to the conversation. I can just remember some of the work that you did, it being just this has got so much, I don't know, depth to it, and it was really thoughtful. And I thought, here's somebody who I guess kind of is part of my sort of community of what we might term mindful marketers, and mindful not necessarily being meditation and everything, but being very mindful of the situation, mindful of the customer, mindful of the challenges, and just a realistic kind of strategic marketing planner, really, which I think at the time was quite a rare thing. There weren't really many people doing it that way at that time. So that kind of approach, I guess, is still with you kind of today, because I guess it's part of your DNA in many ways.
Absolutely. I think I was hungry. I graduated from college with a degree in advertising and marketing, and I fell in love with the idea of creating a brand that sometimes with good proper positioning and proper management, you could literally print money for that brand. And the more you go up in price, the more valuable this brand can be, with similar, to say the least, like of course sometimes brands would use prime quality, but a lot of the times what we're buying as consumers is the brand. And this idea like really captured my imagination, and I was so hungry to learn. And at the time, Leo Burnett was a good school. It's a good place to start your career because they have a lot of philosophy behind what you do. And at the time, they were talking about something called the humankind. And this is kind of a philosophy where brands could be brought to life in different forms and shapes, and I was, absorbing all of that learning, and then I coupled that with what I got from your courses, and then I stayed on track, hungry for learning, eternal student of life and of marketing, and yeah, it's been quite a journey.
We're going to talk in a minute about well, the key theme for me that I want this conversation to be is the current project that you're working on, your new business, your new venture, because it's very, very exciting. And I would encourage everybody to continue listening to this episode because you will not be disappointed. There's something really quite special in the work that Naja is doing right now. But it was interesting, actually, the way that you described that, because I think for me, there are two kind of categories of marketers, and you are definitely in one of these categories. There's the marketer who accepts the status quo, accepts how it has been, understands the textbooks, is very on brand, is delivering campaigns, is doing things in a sort of predictable fashion, let's say. So they're probably getting good results. They're quite sort of easy to predict. They know what's coming this year. It's probably not that different to what was coming last year. And then you have the other category of marketers, and this is the one I'd put you in, Naja, is the one who they're hungry and they're curious. They want to explore more. They're not going to rest on their laurels. They're always challenging. They're looking for a new way of doing things. So it's always about improvement. It's always that, yeah, we might have done well last year, but this year can be even more special. And they're constantly looking to reinvent themselves. You must identify with that kind of definition of a marketer, because you've been all over the world doing what you do.
Yeah, it's growth mindset, isn't it? So at Leo, where the status quo was all about mass communication, mass media, one-way marketing, and then there's this little thing that's coming up called social media. So I went all in on the social media side, and I was kind of the digital guy in the agency. And then it pays off pretty handsomely. My career went skyrocketed, really, and I was the youngest managing director of an 80-person agency and I was less than 30 years old. So, and now we are in a similar situation, right? There's this generative AI thing, on the block, and we're used to do marketing in the era before that thing that came about. So now I find myself at the middle of that storm. Again, I felt myself that I am the man. I am the one that needs to reinvent myself once again and reskill myself, upskill myself. And I believe that everyone should be doing the same, because this is a very transformative technology, and we have to be at the forefront as marketers. And I know that you're interviewing a lot of AI specialists and AI experts, and you're seeing how valuable this thing is.
Yeah, and I guess we're kind of sort of almost sharing the passion here, aren't we? Because you're seeing it very much from a technical development. Because we're going to talk about your new venture in a moment. But I guess for both of us, we're finding that we're being presented. Because Naja, by the way, for everyone listening, has a podcast too, and I'll put the link to Naja's podcast and various other ventures in the description for this episode. But I mean, we're kind of sort of seeing a lot of the similar, but the same people kind of emerging to tell their stories, aren't they, through our podcasts, but also in the conversations that we're having, all the groups that we're part of. And it feels like there is this new emerging community of people who are really, I guess, at the front edge of this emerging wave of AI capability and AI evolution. And it's almost, and I think the really interesting thing and difference for me with this one, and I'd be very interested in your view on this, is it is different to the social media revolution when that happened, because that was almost proprietary. You almost had to be in the know to be part of it. Whereas the AI revolution, you can upskill yourself. You don't have to necessarily get another qualification. You can, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You can be part of the community. You can contribute to it. And it's open access, true open access. Whereas I feel back in the days of, the early dawn of social media, it was kind of quite confined. You couldn't just say, hey, I'm a social media expert and I've got all these connections. It's almost like you had to do your time. You had to kind of do the research, but then almost wait for permission to be accepted into that community. Whereas AI, it's open to anybody who is hungry and willing enough to be part of the conversation. Do you see it in a similar way, or have I kind of misinterpreted that?
I do see it this way to a certain extent. Being part of the conversation and using the tools is one important factor to keeping up with the advancements. But I think from my personal journey and personal experience, there are two types of people, another types of people that you mentioned. One, but the main theme here is that there are some people who are not really good with technology. Like they have a laptop, they connect to the internet, they use most of the tools, but I can see from the people around me that you will see that they are not so intentional about like learning the tools, understanding the back end, understanding how they work, why they work, what's the purpose, what's the business model. So there's a lot more depth to technology that is not only what the forefront or the interface shows you. And I think I was more curious about this. I was like, I want to know more. How does it work? I'm not going to accept ChatGPT to produce intelligent articles for me without actually understanding how it's doing it. So, and it's also a lot of coincidence as well, because when during COVID, when I decided to move to the US to pursue a master's in information systems, I was at the time reading books on AI. I don't know why I was reading books on AI. I think partly it was romantic reasons, because I was like, oh, could it be like we might be able to produce intelligence that will exceed our intelligence as humans? So I was very curious from that time. I didn't know that ChatGPT will come about, but the coincidence happened that as I was in the last year of my master's degree, ChatGPT launched, and the next semester I had to present the topic for my thesis. So I was like, of course, I'm going to do my thesis on generative AI. And the thesis took me to places where I never expected. I never expected to read the papers for my literature review on how, GPT-4 and the sparks of AGI, for example, or these fundamental papers that made this technology what it is today. So that opens my mind to a whole different spectrum. And I knew that I have to be in this space. And I knew, and we're going to talk more about this, that brands and marketing have a huge opportunity right now. And I know a lot of them, they're not recognizing it, but in the very near future, they will eventually, because everybody's going to be doing it. So now the people who start this revolution are going to be on the forefront, and they're going to show us all the example of how to do it. And I'm hopefully that I will be part of that process.
Well, I think you're already part of the process, and I want to now lead into the how you're part of this process, because I think for a lot of marketers, a lot of people, business owners listening to this podcast and watching it will be thinking, well, that's all very well, but I know ChatGPT, it can write me an article, it can prepare a meal for me from the ingredients I have in my cupboard, in my kitchen. It can do all of these things, and that's ChatGPT. You've taken a very different view, though, rather than it just purely be about the creation of content or information or the guidance of an answer based around a particular question that you ask of it. You've taken a very different view with a concept called, or a new business rather, called Parrots Lab. And if I get this right, and you can totally correct me if I haven't got this right, but I think what you're doing with Parrots Lab is you're using the engine, let's call it, of ChatGPT to power a proper two-way conversation with a brand. So the GPT version of Parrots Lab, for example, is a front-end conversation. We call it an avatar because it's not really an avatar, but it's a conversation piece. It's an access point. It's an interface with your brand that doesn't necessarily involve you. Have I got that
Correct.
right? Because that is how it feels when you experience it.
You've got precisely right. I call it conversational brands, and this is basically the main insight: building the next generation of conversational brands. And the idea here is simple. The idea starts with, okay, what is the evolution of marketing? And I'm sure, like you know that marketing starts with one-way communication, where there's the television and you're watching, and then it evolves into social media and minimal interaction. So you could comment now on a brand, you can send a DM, you could have this kind of intermittent interaction. But the ultimate dream for a brand is a total engagement, a personification, they call it brought a brand to life. You bring it to life as a human. And even like when we study brands, we think of what's a brand character. Like if Nike was a hotel room or was a hotel, what kind of people you will see in the lobby? Or if Volvo was a hotel, what kind of people you will see in that lobby? So they're totally different characters and different personas and different people that could be represented for brands. Excuse me for the English here, but the idea here is that brands dream about bringing their personal character to life, and now you've got these GPT models that are a blank canvas. They can interact in natural language. And all I did is adding another layer. And this layer is this exactly, the persona of the brand, the character of the brand, the personality, in addition, of course, to the products and services and the knowledge on these products and services. So in my head, I thought that this is where brands should go, and I might be wrong on it. It's like I took a gamble with Parrots Lab. I really, I figured out from my master's thesis, I tested the efficacy of these chatbots that are trained on company websites. So basically, I took 5 companies in my thesis. I haven't published it yet, but it will be very soon. My advisors are pretty excited about it. I took 5 companies in 5 different sectors, and I created different chatbots for these brands, trained on their public information on their company websites. And I brought human subjects, more than 150 of them, and I presented to them, one group, go browse this website and find me this information. And then another group, I presented the chatbot, and I was testing which group reported higher customer satisfaction, which I even timed the survey so that I could tell which group found the information at the speed of how quickly they found the information they're looking for. And I tested like all bunch of metrics around that process. It's basically one user would interact with a website as a graphical user interface, and another would interact with a website as an AI engine. And the results are like crystal clear. There's no doubt that people prefer to just go to talk to somebody, right? Like we love what we're doing right now, is having a conversation. We love this stuff. So this is the gamble I took. I was like, okay, has to have conversational websites, and then I start looking on how to create a conversational website that is powered by these AI models, and this is how I came up with the Parrots Lab model, where you will see that a main chatbot that is AI powered on the center of your website. It's not like the little bubble down there that nobody really likes to use. It's mainly for like customer service. And I think this little bubble, it gained a negative reputation on most websites because it never really worked. It causes more frustration and anger from the customer than it actually solves their problem. So I figured we need to bring this AI agent as a centerpiece on this brand's website and make it and let it loose to go and talk to their customers and people and see where we can take it from there. And it's, for me, I'm very convinced that this is the way of the future. Some people would disagree. They would like, no, let's keep it in the bubble. But I can build both, but I prefer to build it as a centerpiece in the middle of the website.
We'll put the link to the you called it a chat bot. I think I need to find a different description for it, because it feels so much more. It's more than a chat. It's a sort of a conversation entity. I think it's more than a chatbot, because to me, a chatbot feels, with the bubble in the corner, as you're calling it, feels as though it's kind of pre-programmed with, some stock answers, and eventually I'm going to have to press the button to speak to a service agent anyway. I'm sure lots of people would agree that apart from a few very, very, very impressive ones that actually work, most of them lead to quite a disappointing endpoint, where you don't actually get an answer, you don't actually get the understanding, and they always come back with, have I sort of given you the answer you need? And invariably you type no, and you just think, oh, okay, I'll go and find it for myself. Where's the search bar sort of for this particular website? Parrots Lab is different, though, because it is so central to the homepage. It's the very first thing you encounter. It is almost like having you use the hotel analogy. It's like having a concierge, isn't it? You go to, even before you get to reception, the concierge desk in the hotel is there before you get to the reception. In other words, is there anything I can do? Can I park your car? Can I take your bags to the reception for you? It holds your hand into the first part of the customer journey. That, to me, that's what this feels like. It's that you have almost like a trusted ally right from the off. So you don't go beyond the homepage alone. It kind of feels like it's there with you. I mean, do you see this as a bit of a concierge, really? Because it knows more than you could ever know about the website, doesn't it? Because it knows where everything is. It knows all the little back routes in to get to where you need to. Why would you in the future need to use a menu that we've all known for the last 20, 30 years on a website, the menu structure, with the right concierge or chatbot or however we call it? That becomes obsolete because your hand is held through the whole journey, isn't it?
Yeah, incredible, isn't it? Like I'm so happy that you see what I see, right? Like I'm so excited about this piece of tech. You mentioned concierge. Why do we love traveling and going on vacation? Partly because we get this 5-star service. We get someone to greet us with a smile as soon as we enter that parking, and then they will give us all the services we need. We just need to ask for it, right? And it's basically a concierge plus a help desk plus a professional, excellent lead generation salesperson who doesn't sell you, who basically, the new generation of sales. It's a lot of different things. It knows about the product more than your best salesperson. So I personally don't see why people don't use it, and I'm sure that they will eventually. But I think we are still programmed to the era of graphical user interface. So I'm sure you know that there is a field of science called human-computer interaction. And I've been also following that part of science, part of my thesis as well. I've added a lot of literature from that field of study. And this human-computer interaction discusses how humans interact with machines and technology in general. And it starts with command line interface. Back in the days before Steve Jobs, we used to talk to computers with the DOS, the command line, the terminal, or on Mac, which is basically a black screen with text. And then Steve Jobs came, and with the whole revolution of graphical user interface, he created the mouse. And then there's all sorts of icons and visuals and stuff. And then we have to move that mouse and click. And I'm sure like 5 or 10 years down the line, even if you want to stretch it, you would say 50 years down the line, we would be looking back and saying, remember, we used to have this mouse and keyboard. Like, really, this is how we used to interact with technology. I'm sure that at some point we don't even need a screen, or we don't even need a keyboard or a mouse, because everything could be verbal. Like, you could just talk to all the machines around you, like in natural language. And that's why this technology is so transformative, because it will reshape how we interact with all the devices around us. All of a sudden, you don't need any button or any, click here or take a mouse here or touch here. At some point, all what you need is to say, it's like a smart home on steroids. And not only that, it can actually do things for you too. And this is where a few days ago I interviewed the startup founder, Smarty.ai, and she founded a company that basically it's a what is it called? It's what is it? It's a productivity app that is AI powered, that actually does a lot of things for you. You say, schedule a meeting with Neil tomorrow in Starbucks San Bernardino, and it will know the location, put the link there, does all of that stuff. A verbal command. And I think this is where we're heading. And I hope that I've been in touch with many CEOs recently, and a lot of them, they're asking for use cases. And unfortunately, I don't have one, because the whole thing is brand new. So I would need those who are interested in experimenting, who are curious to also discover what the potential is, and who are brave enough to believe in this thing and run with it. And that's pretty much the challenge right now.
I'm very curious about your comment there that this entity, let's call it an entity, knows more about your products than your best salesperson. I'm sure people listening to this and watching this picked up on that comment, because there is this, I guess, consensus around the world in many different industries, many different disciplines, that this AI stuff is coming for my job. One of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest fears that I hear a lot of is that, yeah, okay, I know it's currently just being used for content production, but it's coming for my job. I can sense it. I'm scared of it. If what you're saying is correct, that it already, Parrots Lab can already know more about your products and services than maybe even you do, and you created the products and services, how do we mitigate against that fear? Because the reality is that if this entity, concierge, chatbot, whatever we call it, is able to deliver really, really consistent sales leads, or actually make sales, because I'm guessing it can follow right the way through the process to getting the customer to commit, it will, just by definition, take away the need potentially for a very expensive sales force. Now, this might be a too big a question really to answer, but to me, that's a really interesting debate, isn't it? Because if this thing is so good, so powerful, so knowledgeable, but also can do it in a way that the customer doesn't feel as though they're being sold to, but it gives them enough evidence to want to buy. Well, I don't want a salesperson doing that because I need to train them, pay them, keep them happy, with all of their, much as any of us, all of their humanness is going to kind of get in the way. But this feels like it's an absolutely super efficient machine that is going to be able to solve all of those problems. So why do I need sales? I guess is the big question. I can start to see now in the way you described it there, Naja, that this is actually coming for us, isn't it?
Yes, and this is the short answer. Honestly, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you exactly how I see it, and this is how I see it. And that's why I started with two of my of very good friends of mine, professors, PhDs who have been publishing on the topic, and we're in the process of formally initiate something called Singularity Syndicate as a think tank that would really try to raise awareness on the dangers of AI, and also to try to lobby and work with governments to bring back some sort of regulation / sense to all of this. Because you're right. I mean, I am selling my own company right now. I'm a one-person agency, right? And sometimes I wake up with a headache. Sometimes I eat something that bothers me, and I feel bloated, and I don't feel like talking to people. And if you are a customer and you talk to me during that day, you probably get a very different response than when I'm in flow, or I'm in the zone, or I'm in the best performing, like mentally, cognitively, and physically, right? Like you talk to me in the morning is different when you talk to me late at night when I'm super tired. And this is part of who we are as humans. We're biological entities, and we have to sleep, I don't know how many hours, and we have to eat specific food to feel energized. And all of these data points play a role in being a good salesman or not. And where this algorithm on the other side could be trained and fine-tuned and stress tested, because of course all of this is part of the process that we deliver as Parrots Lab. And then once that happened, you've got really a superhuman in the helm of your sales machine, and it you can customize everything about this whole journey. At the start, I used to put this lead generation form right in the beginning of the conversation with my own agent or AI agent. And then I noticed, no, I mean, this is too salesy. Let me configure that. So I removed that. I made a few more adjustments to the instructions and the knowledge architecture. And now we've got like a more seamless idea. And of course, it can always be optimized and customized, but eventually it will reach a point where it will surpass anybody that I could hire to sell the products of Parrots Lab. It could be much better. And now you can add to it an avatar, a face. You can go to synthesia.io right now and create these avatars, and then plug them into that agent. And now you have a face who's looking natural, and of course it's going to get even better with time. And what else do you need in the digital space? You need a human-like face who's super smart, knows everything about your product, consistent in their style and messaging and the way they interact. They're not emotional. They don't get angry. They will treat your customers, regardless how annoying the customer is, they will treat it in the same way all the time. So yeah, it's a dream. It's a dream for the business owners, but it's a nightmare for salespeople. And yeah, this is the long answer, is that we all have to be prepared for a future where we really gonna struggle to find work. And I can see the signs right now. I have a lot of people on LinkedIn that have been consistently employed, Berkeley graduate, worked with big tech companies, yet they are struggling to find jobs right now. So think about it 2, 3 down the line, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, and you have mass unemployment, and now government has to step in and do something about it, right? So.
And that opens up a whole wider debate, which I'm sure at some point, maybe on a follow-up conversation, we possibly will go there, because it is really interesting. And obviously with the amount of research and, the deep dives that you and your colleagues are doing with your syndicate, I mean, it's going to be an ever increasing challenge, I think, for many, many disciplines. I mean, I know in production, for example, and manufacturing, already people are being impacted by this. And I think, from a marketing perspective, I can speak very close to home to think, content copywriters, for example, are going to have to then really start to add value, maybe in different ways than they used to, because, we can use the simple interface with GPT-4 and actually get an incredibly good result within seconds that we can edit and then publish. And it almost feels like we're leapfrogging over some of the people who have provided us for many decades with really great service. I'm just wondering how these kinds of things will play out, because I'm guessing there would still be a role, certainly in the coming years, for your AI agent, concierge, whatever we call it, to be managed, because they're not self-managing, are they? They have to be programmed, they have to be briefed, they have to be, as you say, optimized. And I'm guessing as you add new services into the mix, as you maybe take your brand to a different audience, it would need to be retrained. So you have to kind of almost view it as an employee, do you, such that your salesperson then doesn't actually go out necessarily selling. They leave that to the agent, but then they manage the agent to make sure it's delivering as the business would want. Is that like a redefinition of the role? Because it would feel to me like that's where that might be going.
I agree, and I didn't want to portray that I'm saying like tomorrow all of these salespeople should go and sit at home and do nothing. I'm not saying that. I think that in the coming at least few years, it's going to be an, how can I say it? It's going to help tremendously professionals across the board, not only salespeople. It's gonna power these professionals to 10x their production and become superhuman, because they are powered by these agents and these AI in general. But you're right about the role right now. So if you are a salesperson, you have to act as train the trainer. The way, imagine like you're in the sales organization, you've got like a VP of sales, right? The VP of sales most of the time does not pick up the phone and call and make sales calls. Usually the senior you get in the sales organization, the more your role becomes of training and development of your staff, formulation of the offer itself, and formulation of, sometimes a lot of in the sales organization they have to memorize specific scripts that work, that proven to work with clients, and they train their sales staff on these scripts. And I think this skill exactly has to be deployed, but instead of the staff, for these agents, you have to babysit them. Basically, you have to tell them like, oh, don't say that, say this. How about you word this thing like that? And a lot of the times, for example, even with the Parrots Lab agent, sometimes when I ask question and I see the answer and I didn't like it, I will go and revise the instructions and say, and I put stuff in quotation marks, and I want you to use this specific wording, and it's like that. It's basically you have an intern who was very good with language, and you are working with that intern, training them to perform in a very specific way on your brand, knowing that they know the specifics of all your products and services very well. And this is another thing, when we're dealing with humans have limited memory, they forget. So now, and a lot of high ticket purchases. That's why I position Parrots Lab for high ticket purchases, because with high ticket products, customers research a lot. And the high ticket products as well, they have a lot of specific attributes and details to their product, and therefore humans can sometimes, again, they miss. For example, a client would be interested in a specific feature that the salesperson does not remember to bring it forward, where the AI agent definitely could do that much better. So I think salespeople has to switch into a role of training those agents, for at least for the coming few years. But then in the future, you will have agents to train the agents, and we will enter that vicious circle of bad.
And that's going to be very interesting. And again, if you're listening to this and you find yourself still sitting in that other category away from Naja and myself, thinking, oh, it's not coming, I'm just going to hide and it'll be fine. We'll always have social media the way we've got it now. I'm hoping that you will have listened to what Naja's telling you, because this thing is here. It's not even arriving. It's arrived already. It is already capable. Are there particular industries or particular styles or types of business, do you feel, that will embrace this first? I mean, you talk about high ticket products. Are there sort of particular types of digital presence or digital brands that would take this first? And are there kind of more, say, traditional businesses who will kind of wait and see how those guys do it and then maybe follow later? Do you already see a pattern in your research of certain types of brand or organization or even marketer who would be more receptive to this early on?
Yeah, so from common sense, the ideal customer for at least the agents that I provide would be a customer that either uses a lot of marketing money, they have marketing budgets, they run a lot of ads, and then these ads generate traffic. This traffic could come to a landing page, or it could come to the main website, or whatever. As soon as they, or there are some websites that have naturally, organically, they have a lot of traffic. So the first ingredient is that you need traffic to that website. The second ingredient is that you need a product that is sophisticated. Like, I wouldn't need to chat with an AI agent to buy this bottle of water. It's too it's commoditized. The commodities, the small ticket commodities, they don't require research. They don't require going into the nitty gritty. But if you are buying some sort of an electronic product that is expensive, and you want to know, like when you're buying a laptop, or when you're buying, you really want to know like how much RAM it has and what's the resolution of the screen and all of these details. If you're buying a swimming pool, you want to research that. If you're buying a house frame, these modular houses, for example, if you want to buy these high ticket items, you don't just go online and buy right away. You do extensive research. And the other ingredient is that the website has to be information dense. So the more information density, the harder it is to browse the website, because you need to develop a use case for this technology. And if I can go to neilwilkins.com, for example, and with few clicks in my face, I can get all the information I need. So why, again, talk to an agent? Or it would not make sense for Neil to invest in this technology, because the amount of information, the knowledge itself, is very manageable with a graphical user interface. Where if you have a highly information dense website, and I always give an example with universities, for example, they have a ton of information, and a lot of I'm a student myself, and a lot of time I struggle really to find where to go with all of this information load, and they've got that information fatigue kind of thing. And these are also ideal for an AI agent, because AI agent can absorb a lot of context, and every day these models are opening up even more context. If you remember ChatGPT, when it first starts, it has a very short context window, but now they are increasing it. And if you go onto the page, they have like thousands of words. You can actually put a whole book inside and start talking to that book. So yeah, you need an information dense website, you need high traffic, and you need a complex product. And with these three ingredients, I can be a perfect fit, because then we have a use case that could be proven to be profitable and makes sense as an investment.
It's curious, and I'm kind of seeing maybe even another opportunity, and I'd be interested to test this with you, is that when you're talking about sort of really complex websites, or ones that are quite content heavy, there's been, over the last probably 10 years or so, a big push for content creation, so organic content creation. So the written word, audio, obviously podcasts like this, but also video. If a brand or an individual, I'm thinking myself here, has a lot of content, so this is a real archive of content, so it could be written blogs, it could be articles, white papers, newsletters, etc. Would something like an AI agent be able to make accessing that big archive of information a lot easier? Because I could imagine, maybe in, say, 6 months' time, wanting to go onto my website and to be able to track down all of the podcasts, for example, that are including references to AI marketing. So I'll just use that as a phrase. Would my AI agent be able to say, hey, that's no problem at all, I can present you with this page of links or page of thumbnails that have all of those specific episodes of your podcast, plus any blogs that you've written, presented on then a page that's created on the fly by that inquiry? Because that, to me, that would be taking search to a whole new level within a website. That would be so powerful. I'd buy that. I'd love that if I could afford it.
You're not wrong. Absolutely. Maybe the reason why I haven't really focused on personal brands is because a lot of the personal brands, they don't have the budget to actually produce something like that. But initially, when ChatGPT came about, I immediately thought about digital replicas, and this is probably similar to what you were referring to. So imagine Neil Wilkins have produced thousands of articles and written text and audio and video content over extensive period of time. This could easily train an AI model that would literally replicate Neil. When we say replicate, is because it will replicate not only the knowledge itself, but also the style, the delivery, the wording, and this is so powerful. If you go to ChatGPT and you say, answer my questions as if you are Elon Musk, and you will notice a dramatic change in the way ChatGPT is answering. Because why? Because Elon Musk's public information is all was used to train this model. And similarly, you can say, answer like another personality, and it will shift that tone and style. And you could do that also with personal brands, like yourself or anybody else. It's getting cheaper and cheaper to actually do that. It's just, the whole thing is about time investment and learning the ins and outs. Sometimes, people want to learn how, and I'm also gladly will show you how to develop it. Even right now with the GPT store. So, you could do it. Maybe it's not going to live on your website, but you can do a GPT that lives on OpenAI's GPT store that represents you exactly the way you described it. And I can show you how to do it in a few minutes. But then, of course, you need to optimize and keep stress testing it and make sure that it's working the way you want it to work.
That is just such an invitation, isn't it, to any marketer, any business owner, any personal brand, person or individual, to just get in there and play, get in there, be curious and experiment with this. Because, as you said right at the start of the episode, this thing is here. It's not going away. It's arrived. We've got this thing. And I think, it's ignore it at your peril, I think, is the phrase. I mean, none of us can afford to ignore this. It's here. We need to explore it. We need to figure out not just the why I'd want to do it, but the what can I do with this? And so it becomes very personal to whatever our goals, our strategies are. I mean, if you're in that one category that I was describing that will get very excited by this, I mean, you're probably already experimenting. But if you're in the other group, I would certainly really encourage you to try and be a little curious about this. Don't fear it. Hopefully Naja's given you some indications as to it is not to be feared. Well, certainly not in the short term anyway. And that, people like Naja are available to be able to help you and guide you, and provide sort of services and support, as well as obviously Parrots Lab, if you do have some budget and you want to do this thing properly. It is really an open invitation to be part of this thing, isn't it?
Totally. You have no idea, since the release of ChatGPT and my obsession with this technology, I've been trying to push all my friends and all the people I get in touch with. Even I do hiking on Sundays, and I became known as the AI guy who will never stop talking about this. And I think it's a worthy mission. Like, for me, if I could, and this has happened, by the way. I recently received a lot of feedback from people I have showed them ChatGPT, and they start using it at their work, and now they're getting raises, now they're getting bonuses, and they feel so much more productive. They feel their self-esteem has grown tremendously. They're also using this Gamma AI to produce presentations in short prompts, and then you prompt it, and then all of a sudden you have a presentation that you used to work on for weeks to produce. You could use a lot of people work in compliance, and they have to produce standard operating procedures and all of these that require tedious work and text, and now you could do it in no time. So I think people who have embraced this technology will see a lot of important results in the near future, for sure. So I definitely encourage anyone to play with it, experiment with it, and push and use your time wisely, because I think the most valuable asset we have is this time.
And by doing this and experimenting, you may well create time, or at least free up time to do the more valuable tasks. And ultimately, if AI can there be, taking away those tasks that are really things that we have to do or have to have achieved, but we don't really add value as humans doing them, then great, because then it creates that freedom and that space to do the things where we can add the most value. So I can certainly understand the value of doing that, and will continue to look for myself in those areas. So yeah, that's really great advice. Naja, as always, it's just been a great conversation. Really, really enjoyed it. And you've made me really sort of think and take note of some very key things here. I thought I knew it all, but no, I have no idea. I'm not even scratching the surface yet. So I've got loads more to learn and listen to. So I'm going to be obviously following your podcast as you talk much more about this, and we'll include the link to your podcast as well for everybody in the description of this episode below. So check out Naja's podcast and get along to Parrots Lab as well, and have a little play with Naja's AI agent Concierge on his website, because it's a really, really interesting experience. And it is I have to say, Naja, it is very on brand. It's very usable, isn't it? It's not like you're talking to a technology. It feels like you're actually talking to somebody who really has a sense of who you are and the business. So it's exciting.
Thank you so much, Neil, for having me and for your friendship and for your mentorship. You've been instrumental in my career, and yeah, I look forward to continue this relationship. And I value and I listen to a lot of your podcasts too. I was telling you offline that I've been binging your episodes, and I see a lot of value in the conversations and the people you bring on this podcast. So I want to encourage you to keep going. And yeah, I look forward for more of your episodes as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you again.